Welcome to Manna at the Tap, a podcast from Tapestry Ministries. Each episode reflects on a daily Bible reading from the Revised Common Lectionary. I'm Gloria, a fellow traveler on a spiritual journey with the Tapestry community, and we refer to the daily Bible reading as our spiritual manna. It nourishes our souls, fostering spiritual growth as we share insights and interpretations that enrich our spiritual lives. Today is Wednesday, July the 2nd, 2025, the third week after Pentecost in the season of ordinary time. It is a time for us to live an extraordinary, disciplined life as we grow spiritually. The lectionary reading is Psalm 140. David, Israel's king in waiting, composed the poem as he was navigating an internal conflict with King Saul, the reigning monarch. After David had slain the Philistine giant Goliath, the people celebrated with singing and dancing. They changed the victory song of the day to King Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. King Saul was upset that a teenage shepherd boy received more praise than he did. Filled with anger and jealousy, he was determined to capture and kill David, who ended up in exile, living in the desert regions while avoiding King Saul and his soldiers. David and his men were hungry, so he entered a small town in search of food. Someone recognized him and warned King Saul about David's whereabouts. Now Saul was back on the trail. David and his men were exhausted from fleeing, and as a result of all that was happening, David sat down and wrote the poem that became Psalm 140. David cried out to the Lord in prayer, seeking deliverance and protection from King Saul, whom he described in his prayer poem as an evil and violent man. The weapons of war that King Saul used were his words, and David described them like the tongue of a serpent filled with poison and ready to strike its victim. David called on the Lord for help because it seemed King David and his men were constantly planning violence and provoking battles. On three occasions, while David was writing his poem, he paused for a Selah moment. And you might wonder, what is a Selah? It is a pause during which one shifts one's attention away from one's activity. Then there is a moment of deep breathing followed by moment of raising one's voice in praise. After the second Selah moment, David reminded the Lord that his loyalty belonged solely to the Lord. And he was thankful that the Lord had heard his voice and served as his strength and shield of protection for his head. He asked the Lord not to grant the heart's desires of those who do evil, lest they exalt themselves. Then he paused for the third and final Selah moment. David finished his poem, by confidently praising and giving thanks, promising to remain in the presence of the Lord.